going to look at two sutras today, partly because I prepared to talk about 224. And we haven't yet done 223, and they're very closely intertwined. So we'll look at both of them and do our practice based on what they have to say. So what's happening in these two sutras, let me go back one. The sutra before, 222, said, although destroyed for one who has attained liberation, Prakriti, the scene, the material, still exists for others because it's common to them. So if you've attained liberation, samadhi, Prakriti is destroyed. But for all the rest of us, it's still there because that's the world we live in. And then Sutra 23, 223 says, the union of Purusha and Prakriti causes the recognition of the nature and powers of them both. So when samyoga happens, that's the word he uses, when samyoga happens, when Purusha and Prakriti come together, we recognize the nature of them both. So what it's saying is that when the material world, which is Prakriti, and that knows the material world, which we call Purusha in yoga, start to interact in our understanding of the world, which is that union, we see the nature of reality. So we wake up a little bit and we're like, okay, so there's like all of the material world that's out there creating my experience. And then there's this part of me, which we'll call Purusha, that sees that I'm not of the material world, but I'm really enmeshed in it. So it's like that awakening of awareness that says, I am not all of the things happening to me. There's another part of me that's a witness to what's happening. And if we've learned on our little journey here that the material world, Prakriti, in a sense is our teacher, right? So all of these things happen to us, and the material world is helping us become fully formed. And then once we realize, like, oh, it's not that, then we start to realize our true nature. So there's a union of Prakriti and Purusha that we start to witness. We're like, okay, it all goes together to actually help us understand how things really are. And then the next sutra, 24, says, the fact that we think there is union is more evidence that we don't know what's going on. Which is a little bit esoteric, but here's how I'd like to, well, let me speak to what he says a little bit, because I think this sutra translation has some little gems in it. On page 115, if you have your book, he says, the sutras are reminiscent of the Four Noble Truths of the Lord Buddha, which tell us about 1, the misery of the world, 2, the cause of misery, the removal of that misery, and how to do it. So he's referencing Buddhist teachings that say life is suffering, why do we suffer, and how to stop suffering. And then he says we can really see the similarity between the two. And we need to search for who copies who. So like, it doesn't matter if Buddhism came first or the sutras came first, like who's right, who was first, like that doesn't matter. All of the great teachers have come to the same understanding. He says Buddha got it, Patanjali got it, Jesus got it, Muhammad got it. The answer is the same, but the method of working it out may vary this way or that. So our teacher, Swami Satchidananda, really has this sense of universal truth. And if you go to his ashram in Virginia, Yogavale in Virginia, he has this shrine called the Lotus Shrine, which is really a place where he brings together all the faith traditions and helps show the universal truth that kind of runs through all these different traditions. So I love that about him as a teacher, is that he's not like one's better than the other. He's like, we're all seeking truth. And we usually all come to the same conclusion after we go all the way around the block. And what he's saying is, we think there's a distinction between the material world and the nature of reality. And if we go through all of this inquiry work, we'll actually realize that there's no separation. When we study the 8 limbs of yoga, which we're going to get to later in this book, the first stage of what might be called the area of meditation in the Yoga Sutras is concentration. So we learn to focus our mind. And we learn to see that our mind is busy and that we're bouncing between all these different experiences and just our interpretation of the experiences or try to understand the experiences. And then there's a phase that the word meditation is used to describe. And that's really where we start to see that we're not that separate, right? Instead of just waking up like, oh, there's all these things happening and I'm reacting, which is stage 1, there's this like, oh, well, maybe we're all the same. Maybe if I start to get into deeper inquiry, I can see that there's less separation between us. So what he's explaining in these 2 sutras, by saying this is how it is, and then actually that's not true, we just think that's how it is he's really taking us through kind of how the practice works. Like first we start to see separation, and then we're like, oh no, we're not that separate. And then he says, well, we kind of are. So he's like basically mirroring what happens to us in meditation through these 2 sutras, which is hopeful to me because it gives us a sense that our process of going through this awakening is pretty much the same, right? Even, in explaining the nature of reality and how to find liberation, he's explaining that like we're gonna kind of go back and forth between these different states of understanding. So what I'm going to ask us to inquire into in our meditation practice today is just really seeing our experience of something that's going on with us and stepping back from it and seeing a little bit of like, oh, this is just my experience of it. And then maybe seeing where there's something in between. So if it's getting really heady for you and esoteric, no worries. We're just going to do a little practice on this idea. So I'm going to invite us to create a posture for practice, which is grounded and upright and alert. So there's an alertness. When you feel like you've got yourself situated, you can close your eyes if you like. take a few moments and rest into your breath, just the coming and going of your breath, or any other anchor that helps you feel mentally stable. So maybe it's counting your breath, sensing into your feet or your hands or your belly. Coming into a sense of what's right here. Sense into okayness. What I mean by that is just everything's okay. So you're not grasping towards something like happiness or joy, or avoiding something like sadness or suffering, just okayness. In the language of yoga, we would call this santosha. Sometimes the English word is contentment. I have a sense that this is the nearest thing in our human realm to liberation. Notice if there's just a little spark of joy, is a word I'll use. So it's like a brightness to the okayness. And there's a sense of safety. Mind to think of something that's been activating for you this week. It might have been an argument or a situation that was challenging and brought up feelings and reactions. And maybe you replay that moment, that experience, and allow yourself to feel activated. Your breath might speed up a little bit. There's usually a physical reaction to the mental reaction. Just allow yourself to notice what's here, what shows up. Notice how the thought of Prakriti, of what happens in the material world, creates thoughts that have the same energy. And then there's a physical experience of that energy. Is, what if I don't know everything about this situation? What if the difficulty is actually offering me a chance to see something I did not see before? Widen my understanding of reality. What if right away I could smile like I sometimes do when I think about past trauma? Experience this as like a little moment of, oh, haha, the joke's on me. Which can create a little softening in the tension. A releasing of some resistance. And notice that in the exhalation. To okayness. That sense of everything's okay. Notice your body release some of the grip. breath and your thoughts just coming into ease. Allowing in a little brightness. Forgiving yourself for your humanity, your humanness. Just this. Take a bigger, fuller breath. Do that again, nice big kind of clearing of space. And then when you're ready, open your eyes. Thoughts, insights, questions? All right. Well, I hope you have a wonderful day, free from suffering. Or maybe not. Just don't take it so seriously. All right, I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you, Kate.
You're so welcome.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody. I'll see you later, Dad.